Here's the question. How do you make the impossible possible? Simple. Remove the I am, the ego. Now, how do you step into that newfound possibility? With a series of small intentional steps. Never forget, the greatest among us started from humble beginnings. But to truly unlock your potential, realize you're here for something greater. If you're yearning for more than just a good life, let's take that small step together to reach greatness. Welcome to the Greatness from Small Beginnings podcast, where we're talking to those who have gone from mediocrity to motivated, overlooked to overachieving, forgettable to unforgettable. Are you ready? Let's go. So welcome everybody to the Greatness from Small Beginnings podcast. Another episode today. I have my good friend. I want to know you better, right?
Sure.
But you live across the country.
Right.
But I just happen to be in Tampa right now. And here we are.
Yes.
Thank you for coming on, Alexander Gonzalez.
Yeah, thank you for inviting
Okay.
me. Excited
Yeah.
to be
And
here.
so the title, Greatness from Small Beginnings. Almost everybody I have on, everybody I talk to can relate, almost everybody, with the small beginnings thing, right?
Sure.
Because that's easy to figure out. Well, we were a kid and we had less than we dreamed, right?
Sure.
So that's easy. And we'll get into that a little bit.
Okay.
But what I like to do, and on the way to this location where we're sitting, you were talking about, you actually used the term to make people great.
Sure.
You know, and I went, oh, that's going to be good. So try to remember what you were talking about.
Sure. Yeah.
Your definition of greatness.
Yeah.
For you, like no textbook,
Sure.
no dictionary. Your definition of greatness.
I think that's a really good question. And I think that part of my journey was actually defining that, because what I defined greatness for the longest time, I ultimately no longer define greatness that way.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, greatness was success. Greatness was winning. Greatness was, everything just working out the way that it should.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not life.
Yeah.
And so now for me, you're walking in your greatness when you're walking in your purpose. And in fact, I just today finished writing a chapter, and I'm in an anthology about social media. And so anyways, and I say, this is actually something that I say today, and it kind of like dawned on me, is that when you understand the point of it all and why you, those two things, what's your point? Where are you going? I know. And it took years of self-discovery, doing the work, that I realized that God put me on this earth.
Sometimes doing the wrong thing, or
lots of times doing the wrong things.
Yeah.
But I know that my number one mission is to perpetuate love everywhere I go. I feel like that's what I'm called to do. I have other missions, to be an excellent husband, excellent father, the best, there's other things, but at the core of it all, it's perpetuating love. And so I'm walking in my greatness when I understand the point of why what I'm doing is what I'm doing. And then number two, I also understand why me, why I was selected. And what that helped me do, actually, Keith, gosh, I love how this all works out, because it's all popping in my head now. What I'm realizing is it helped me work through my trauma, was understanding why I was selected. Because in being selected for this calling, for this purpose, I had to go through what I went through so I could be more effective in it.
And doesn't it make us more grateful?
Yes.
As we look back at our past, as bad or as good in some places, all that is like the culmination of not only just the purpose, because that's actually almost a separate subject, but it energizes the purpose.
Sure.
Because it prepares us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And then it also protects us, because when we understand our purpose, and oftentimes we're faced against negativity or the mountains, we're prepared because we understand this is just part of the journey.
Yeah.
Or I don't have to listen to that naysayer. This is the path that I'm on. I know what I'm meant to do.
Yeah. What I've discovered and told others lately, it's not a new discovery, but that today's issues, today's problem, today's things, good and bad, they're all temporary.
Yeah.
It's going to change. It's going to change for the better if it's really bad. And it's actually going to get worse at some point if you're doing really good.
Sure.
That is the nature of the pathway we're on, the process that God has put us on.
Absolutely.
Right? Well, that being said, you said my purpose,
well, who ignited that for you? Let's maybe talk faith for a moment.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's my journey is so zigzagged, and it's that country song, God Bless the Broken Road, because
Yeah.
I was blessed. I always say, and you've heard me speak on stages, I almost always, when giving my intro or talking about my past, I say I won the lottery when it comes to families, and I really did. I was blessed in a home that we didn't want, for things. I'm not saying we were living large, but Christmas was great. I lived in a home where both parents were very devout Christians, and church was just part of what we did, and never made to feel like a requirement, but just part of our essence as a family.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think they did a really good job of doing that, because now, as an adult with 2 children, I go every week to church. And they don't feel like it's a requirement. I love being a believer. I love being able. Now, all of this was tested many times over.
Of course.
And so I can say that God ultimately is what sparked the calling in me, but it was my tribulations and trials that ignited the fire. And ultimately learning to love that allowed the fire to be laser focused into purpose.
Okay. Why the desperation? It seems like I'm putting that word in your mouth.
Sure.
If that's wrong, then let me know.
No.
Why the desperation to communicate and translate love? Were you at some point unloved? Or is it you that unloved yourself? Or
that's a great.
What's the trigger?
And it's funny because, again, I won the lottery, so I was surrounded by love. I was parents, the people in your life that fill you with love. I got that. What happened was, at a young age, and you've heard me share this, and trigger warning for anyone who maybe has encountered anything, any type of abuse, specifically sexual abuse. At a young age, I was molested. I was molested by a church-going missionary who did good deeds, did very good deeds in the church that I grew up in. I mean, built churches and funded schools being, built on these mission trips through our church. And that person, over the course of 3 years, molested me regularly. And so I had a very convoluted kind of relationship with, how can this person who's a Christian and does good things and I know is a good person still have this evil side to them? And so, we always say church hurt. I know that church doesn't hurt people, and usually hurt people and all that. But I had a lot of quote unquote church hurt. And so I ran. I went to Florida State University. I joined a fraternity. I started doing everything that I could to numb the pain and run as far as I could from the calling. And again, that's when the trials and tribulations started. And it's not to say that I don't have trials and tribulations. Listen, I went through a whole weight loss journey very publicly, grew a whole social media account. I lost 80 plus pounds. I've gained 50 of those back. That hurts me when I look at myself in the mirror at times. And so there's still uphill battles, but somehow on this journey, I figured out that I operate in my best when I'm loving me. And that love is so strong that it permeates out of me, and everyone around me feels loved. Okay. And that's when I'm walking on sunshine, and everything's feeling good.
Yeah. So let me dig into that a little bit in relation to identity. Okay. People that watch this podcast know that, I'm all about, God's wisdom and how that translate into our life. And I've been considering the things in my life where my identity is a little off. And what you just mentioned about that love, why is that your identity? Why is
because it's all of our identity, actually, because we're all made in his image, and God is love. And so once I realized the simple thing, God is love, I chased perfection. I chased fitting in a box that I thought society, I thought church, I thought my parents, I thought whoever, I thought I had to be the perfect student, that no one knew that I did things on the bad things, that was all done in secret. But everything was perfect. Perfect son, the perfect student, the perfect athlete, everything. Until the perfection or the facade of perfection was so heavy, it was like a Hollywood set. It was just the facade. It was so heavy, it just fell. And I realized that the storefront, if you will, that was left, I didn't like. But when I realized that I'm just like God, I'm made in his image, and being made in his image, I am a creator too. What do I create? Love.
Yeah.
I can create love all around.
I was talking to somebody earlier today, I'm at a conference, and that's why I'm here to be able to be with you about this translation. I think this guy has faith, but I don't know where he's at with the whole thing, but I'm not bashful.
Sure.
So I said, he asked where I did a talk, and he listened to it about servant leadership. And he was in the room, and he said, where did that come from?
Sure.
And I said, well, my journey is such that I learned this one lesson, that I need wisdom from God. And he told me, I knew where to go get it, which is scripture. Spent decades reading the Bible every day, devouring what I kind of call, it's a little disrespectful to scripture, my vitamins. Like literally, I'm staying healthy.
Right.
I'm surviving.
Yeah. I don't think that's disrespectful.
Yeah. But it's actually more than that, because sometimes it's a feast.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I was able to tell him that my identity became this relationship that went this way. And that relationship then became, it was a natural outcome, an overflow, became a relationship that went this way with my wife, with my kids. Now, of course, not perfect. Right. Because this one isn't perfect.
Right. Of course.
But it's a reflection of the two. And so
love that.
As my identity became better in that wisdom, in that relationship with the author of wisdom, then I was able to actually live the book, so to speak.
I love that you said that, because it actually reminds me of not a proud moment of my own, where my wife, thank God for the women in our lives that are willing to say it just like it is, who said, you are here perpetuating love everywhere, but your last focus is me. You focus on making sure everyone knows that when you walk in the room, and I promise you, if you meet me, you walk in the room, you're going to feel loved by me. And you're going to feel this positive energy. Right.
Yes.
And yet I wasn't doing that at home. And that's why, I don't know if you remember, but in my on the speech I gave, the last point was to do it at home more than you do it anywhere. Because who cares if you do it everywhere else if you're not doing it at home? And if I wasn't walking in my purpose at home, then walking in my purpose outside of that home would probably be incongruent or not long lasting. Does that make sense? Because I would feel like it doesn't feel right. I would feel unevenly yoked.
Yes, I was off. Yeah, you're off. So I can't really get it right.
Exactly.
So the connection between marriage and the connection of how we relate with God, like, it's no joke.
Well, we're his bride.
Yes, we're his bride. And so the Bible talks about that connection, that the example of the two. Absolutely. And they fit perfectly. And so if I'm off with my wife, I'm off.
Right. And the greatest examples that he gave his life for his bride, ultimately.
Yes.
Are we doing that in every day? That's what it comes down to. And that was always not just preached in front of me, but exemplified. And one thing, I would go to these PK, these preacher's kid retreats.
Okay.
And they would always talk about, they want them to get their complaints out, because it's a population that often feels neglected. Their parents are giving a lot of themselves. To be a pastor, if you listen to this, like, send your pastor a text message or find them on Facebook and say thank you.
Yes.
Because
there's a lot of abuse there.
There's lots of abuse, and they turn their cheek left and right. And as kids, we watch it, and we would be, sometimes as kids, we can get angry at the church because why are you taking advantage of my parents? My parents just take left, right, turn the other cheek. And they would always, say, what are the things? And one of the common complaints that PKs would say is that who their father, because in this time, most kids, there's a father. I know that now women are also pastors, but that their father was different at home than he was behind the pulpit. And I can't say that that's my truth. Who you saw, and when you meet my parents, if you ever meet my parents, they exude love. Yeah. Like, to know them is to love them, because to know them is to feel loved by them.
Right.
And
that's so awesome.
That allowed that. So it was always in there.
So you have a legacy of it.
I do have a legacy, but I didn't realize that it was a legacy, or I didn't see the value of it until I was so far down that I hated myself so much that I realized the only way out of this is to love myself and everyone around. Yeah. Truly unconditionally.
Yeah.
Which is really hard.
Did you find that loving others was the connection that you needed to understand how to love yourself?
100%. It did start there.
Because we need people to know. There's a mechanism. Now, you don't just go love yourself. Right?
Oh,
like,
no,
you actually have to go serve. And
just because I say in this moment I love myself does not mean in an hour from now something might not happen that I don't feel love for myself. Like I said, it's an everyday uphill battle, but I make the decision. And it all stems from, because I know I cannot love or provide for my children at the level that they need me to love and provide for them if I don't love for myself. So I can learn by loving others, but until I truly have love within, that love for others is always going to be just a portion of the love you really could have.
Yeah.
I tell my kids every single day I love them, and I always follow up with the question, do you know why? And their response is just because. Every single day. My children know my love for them knows no bounds. It has no reason. It comes just because. They can earn my respect. They can earn my pride. There's things they can earn. They can lose those things as well. They can never lose my love. Because it's unconditional. And that's what God has shown us. In spite of us, for all have sinned and come short. In spite of our shortcomings, he loves us.
Yes.
And so if we can't love that way, then you're not loving unconditionally, and it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to love those closest to us with condition.
It's easy to put conditions.
It's very easy. I love you when you make me feel happy. I love you when you're in a good mood. I love you when you're not nagging. I love you when you're not fill in the blank.
Yeah, fill in the blank.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And love is not because of, it's in spite of.
Yeah.
In spite of all the negative, I love you anyways.
Yeah. So a little bit of history. I just want to go back to, so we met, I think the day before you went on stage that first time.
Correct.
What, about 2.5 years ago?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, we connected. You walk in a room, you loved me. I loved you. Like that kind of is natural for us. And you met my wife, and
your wife,
your wife is like,
she's
my wife. She's just
to your soul.
Yeah, she sees. Yeah,
yeah. She knows what you need to hear.
Yeah,
like God, she has a direct line. You can just tell. She's
so jealous.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And then, so I saw some greatness in you because I connected with it. Right. Other ways to see greatness in others, but that for sure. And then I saw you on stage, and I went, "Oh my!"
Right,
look at that. And the discussion, the conversation, the talk was about love.
Right.
I don't remember every detail, but I remember sitting there going, "Wow." What the world needs now is love, sweet love, right?
Exactly. Literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yes. And you did a good job.
Thank you very much.
And you do a good job. So what are you doing now? Like, what's the journey? Why were you on that stage?
So by the grace of God, I'm still a public speaker. That's still my number one passion. I love emceeing. So I've been doing a lot more emceeing lately, where I'm hosting a conference or a few galas that are raising money for events. I'm a member of the board. I'm a board member of an incredible not-for-profit that's called Spread the Cheer USA, which is basically influencers through social media utilizing their positive platforms to raise a ton of money and help families in need. So we raise hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s. We do events all over the nation. Like I'm about to fly to Houston, where we're having a whole Dave & Buster's open for a bunch of foster kids. Then I'll be in Vegas for, we do these incredible things. So that's my passion project. That's where my volunteer time, that's where that goes. I'm still a professional network marketer. That's still what I have as a side hustle. But now I'm breaking again back into education, but at a younger level. So I've been in higher ed, which is at the college and university level. But now I'm working with students, a really unique population of students who have been expelled from their school for various reasons, most often physical harm to a teacher, to an adult, weapon usage or drug usage. And they come to our school, and it's like going to prison. They're scanned. They have, they're everything. You're buzzed into everywhere.
Wow.
Because it is unfortunately a unique population that you have to do that. But I get to be in a space filled with kids who no one believes in, or for the most part, most people don't believe them. And I just get to shine my love light. I stand out my door, and where my quad is where all the kids walk into school right before they can grab their breakfast. And I'm like, good morning. And I know these kids look at me and roll their eyes. But now, several weeks into it, they're like, okay, good morning, Mr. G. Good morning. Like they're saying it back. I'm like, before this kid would literally look at me like this and keep walking. But they saw I was consistent. They saw that my love wasn't fake. They saw that my love didn't matter based on their response or their acceptance of me. My love was my own acceptance of myself, freely given to them. So it was irrelevant, their response.
Yes.
And over time, that love has shaped these students that are now in a place that they receive, mentoring, they receive teaching, they hear, they listen to what I have to say, and I feel so fulfilled. And so now it's re-careering and seeing what this looks like for the future.
Yeah, well, that is fantastic. It's a hard game, that education.
It's very hard.
And this is a hard population to educate, right?
It is.
And yet that's what they need. They need consistency.
Right.
Yes. Like I told you, I have a friend in that, and he's just moved out of it, and they shut down basically the school and moved them all back to the general population, but he still has a lot of interaction, and it takes a special person. So good job.
Thank you. I appreciate
that.
Yes.
Yes.
It's definitely a thankless job because they were not taught to say thank you oftentimes.
Or to be grateful.
Or to even be grateful.
Yeah.
Or even to say, I remember, it's a funny story, I give love, but that does not mean I'm a doormat. And I want to very much make that clear, because part of my success in this role, part of my success as a parent of two incredible children, I think being a dad is like I'm like the greatest at it. I really believe that. Is I have very clear boundaries. Yeah. Very clear boundaries. And you will not toe those lines. It isn't black and white. It is not gray. No. And as long as we stay within those boundaries, we're having time of your life. The second you cross, I'm coming in hard. And once they understand that and they establish that, they understand the love is free, but that does not mean that their behavior can be free. There's a really great understanding and a really cohesive, just beautiful learning environment that's created. Yeah.
Did you know that K&L, the company I work in, that I founded, is Second Chance Employment, and it's the same. I did not know that. So all of these things you're talking about are the same at work.
A lot of these kids actually have felonies.
Yeah.
And I work with the middle school population. So 6th, 7th, and 8th, actually primarily only 7th and 8th graders. And majority of my 7th and 8th graders have felonies. Yeah. So my wife's, of course, she's in the office, at our work. And so she's involved in the onboarding. And some of them have actually said, so you don't want to know more about like my issues, my record? Right. And she says, well, I need to know what I need. I need to know what I legally need to know. But your past here does not define you. 100%.
Your today does, and your future does.
Right.
Not your past.
And that's the boundaries.
You screw with us, there's a big problem.
Sure, 100%.
You break our trust, you'll have to earn it to get it back. But as of today, your past does not define you. Right. And that's you know her, like she's very clear on saying, God made you, you are important, and we all screw up. Right. So you have a chance here. Yeah. And it's a real chance. Anyway, I just love how that resonated. Yeah, we're talking about it, a bunch of kids really, but they've had to not act like kids. They've done adult. And
half the time, sometimes you hear their backstory and it doesn't necessarily align with their behavior. So maybe there's something else going on that we don't know about. But sometimes you hear these kids' backstories and your heart is broken.
It's just horrible.
And you're thinking, wow, all these people, like you hear, oh, you have that student, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking in my head, well, did you know that XYZ has happened? And the fact that that kid is showing up to school every single day with clothes on his body is a miracle. And your judgment on him does nothing for anyone but poison you. I want to say these things sometimes because it's like, look at the backstory. Like you can't just make these assumptions. You never know. And that's not to say that there are not moments that I'm like, get out of my classroom now. Like, you're called every name. I've been spit on. Yeah. There are times that they lose control. Yeah. But when they realize that one loss of control does not ultimately dictate how I treat them for the rest of the time that I have them, they understand that there is such thing as a second chance, as long as you truly repent and reverse.
Yeah.
And
that's their responsibility.
It's on them.
It's on them.
Yeah, exactly.
The chance is in front of you.
Right. It's on you.
Step by step.
Exactly.
Now, granted, step by step means that you're going to misstep sometimes.
Right. True.
Sometimes we're on a road, a highway, there's exits.
Right.
Those exits are not always good. And so we have given third chances. We've given fourth chances.
Sure.
And it's not like they screwed up bad. Like they didn't,
well, there's certain boundaries, right?
That you have to cross boundaries. Sure. And so anyway, that's great. So any more to the journey of greatness? So you're headed there. What do you see out 10 years? 20 years. I don't know where the good.
To be honest, I feel that I will be in administration or at the county level somehow where I'm able to make more of a shift in education. Being on the school board is a political role.
Yeah.
I have always had aspirations for politics, but never felt like I was a politician. But if I can do good in the school board, understanding a really unique, not just that population, but all populations, I'm blessed with 2 gifted children. Both of my kids are, yes, they're gifted, but meaning they're designated gifted at the school.
Yeah.
And the middle schools, I'm touring the middle schools. Well, they go to an arts school, and the arts middle school is very, very dangerous. Volatile population, lots of fights. But the gifted and arts magnet kids are literally separated in their own wing. And they're like, oh, don't worry, your kids are gifted. They're safe. Well, to me, what's the mentality there?
Yeah,
why is everyone not safe?
It's like segregation.
100% segregation. Like, and I don't want my kids going to your school, because them being gifted doesn't make them special. It means that they learn different.
Yeah.
They have the capacity for other things. And so it doesn't make them better. And so if I feel like I can make shifts. So what that path looks like, I don't know. I'm definitely going to be continuing my public speaking. I'm working on getting all my credentials done. I might be going back for my doctorate in education. I have a master's in psychology. So I'd have to take some prereqs, but ultimately they would want a degree in education. And so that's a path that I'm discussing, but yeah.
Maybe some school, maybe. So, we need love, and we need in our culture, our society, our country, we need people that have a broader view, kind of a love view.
Sure.
On how we change things.
Yeah.
You talk about the nonprofits, and I just got an email earlier from somebody that said, I want to introduce you to this guy. Here's his website, and it's a nonprofit. And I looked at what he did. I'm like, man, it's really good.
Right.
Well, the world needs this.
100%.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to kind of finish up, I want you to imagine something with me.
Okay.
Is that all that we've talked about, people out there have heard it. Okay. You get the privilege of crawling through this microphone, down this wire, and you get to be walking down the path with somebody that's got earbuds in, or you're sitting in their car while they're listening to the audio version of this, and you are going to be gone in about a minute.
Sure.
What's your last word for them?
Stop thinking that self-love is just something that people love talking about. Stop thinking that you're unworthy of truly loving yourself, and stop thinking that you aren't enough. The reality of the matter is that you can be in a place that, listen, I'm not perfect. And one of the things that I really can be dangerous, I jokingly say, and this, I'm a self-development, junkie. I love it. I go to the conferences, but oftentimes perfection is portrayed when perfection is not really the reality. So stop.
Yeah.
Just love, just believe. Find one thing today that you love about yourself and focus on that. Like today, I'm loving the fact that I'm here speaking with you. That makes me so happy. So love can flow from one thing and let it permeate everything else.
Alexander has given you, the listener, some mechanisms to, if you're not on the pathway to get on it, some motivation if you already are. He's given you that. So I'll just sign off like I always do, and with a call to action, which is, you, the listener, go be great.